Thank you, Dee, and I'm grateful to be with you today on this most important topic of tipping the balance to things we can control. There's so much we can't control, but there's a lot of actions and personal steps we can take to navigate through this current pandemic. So I asked in the beginning, what is one of the unexpected joys or blessings you've received, and maybe what is one of the challenges that you're still grappling with into the current crisis? And Paul says that, yeah, not having a commute is great, right? That's a rose. So what a gift. And then the thorn that comes with that rose might be isolation, lack of connecting, with ourselves at a human level. And I want to invite those of you who haven't weighed in on this yet, please share, what are some of your unexpected blessings and what are some of the challenges? So thank you, Paul, for leading us off on that.
Hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
I can.
This is Lynn Myers. I work with Dee Dee at the Aurora Chamber. So thank you, Dee Dee. These have been terrific. And Rob, I've listened to you. This is my third time and I've enjoyed, you kind of connected with me. But
thank you for coming back, by the way. It's really good to have you.
There you go. Well, it's good. And we have, I've enjoyed doing the Zoom meetings with our Aurora Chamber staff. It's been connecting. But I think the silver lining for me has been the relationship with people far. I don't have kids and I have 4 nephews with children. And in the last week, I've talked to 2 of my great nephews. One is a senior in college, a cute guy in Maryland. And the other, his cousin, graduated from Penn State last year. And they would have never talked with their great aunt for a half hour at a time had it not been for being housebound. So I think that's kind of a nice, I hope the relationship connection stays with us when we come out of this. And I've also done some kind of good house projects that I've wanted to do for a long time. But we at the Chamber have been calling our members and offering them support. And I think that has been something that has set our group apart, that we are just a good place to do business with and to support the community. And I think I'm really proud to be a part of that.
That's awesome. And Lynn, thank you for the candor about the unexpected joy of connecting with family members that you would not have otherwise interacted with at this level.
Only at Christmas, It's better when it's a couple times a year, so it's good.
Anyone else want to weigh in on, a rose and a thorn, like some unexpected gift you've been given with the pandemic, maybe a challenge that you're still grappling with? It looks like we've just had a couple people just join us. So welcome. All right. And again, for those who just joined, feel free when we have the interactive piece to either type into the chat window or just unmute yourself, come into the phone line. Want this to be interactive throughout. I'm going to ask you a question, first of all, and this one has to do with pressure or stress. Russ, thank you for your input, by the way. The rose, clearer air, clean air. And we share a common thorn, Russ. Snacking a little too much while working at home. Yeah, that, here's proof positive. Here's my cola, right? Sometimes those bad habits can become exacerbated a little bit by being inside and being stir crazy. So I love that. Cleaner air, rose, snacking a little bit too much, maybe, thorn. Pressure and stress. So this is an interesting question. And to start out today, I thought we could focus on a story from a children's book. I don't know how many of you, Lynn, you spoke about your nieces, nephews, extended family, whether you have children or not. There's a lot of children's books that have some very popular folklore and some pretty good stories in them. And one of my favorites has always been the William Tell story. So let me, looks like Rosalind's trying to get in. I'm going to go ahead and get that happening. So William Tell's story, all of us kind of have probably, not all of us, many of us probably have heard the story about the Swiss archer, William Tell, who had to shoot the arrow off the head of his son. And the whole reason he had to do that was, I think he was imprisoned by the Austrian Empire and that was his ticket out of jail, had to perform this feat. And when you think about this situation, it is very ripe with pressure and it's very ripe with stress. So I want to ask you the first question. Who is feeling pressure And who is feeling stress here? And we'll talk about the differences as well. Who is feeling pressure? Who is feeling stress? Okay, I've got a couple chats coming in. So we have father feels both, son feels stress. Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? And to what degree? Maybe another question we could ask is to what degree? We'll get at least just a couple more comments on the situation. So Paul says, yeah, William Tell's feeling pressure. Son is feeling stress. Yeah. So it's interesting when you look at this very simple tale in the children's books, that pressure and stress, these are things that we experience in life, probably on a daily basis, and especially now during a crisis, it's probably exacerbated quite a bit. But what makes the difference? Seems like the prevailing sentiment that I'm seeing based on the chats are that there's more stress on the part of William Tell's son, and there's more pressure on the part of William Tell. Why is that? Like, what is making the difference between experiencing stress versus pressure? So just to make certain that we're understanding, each of these, because we probably all have our different definitions. One can be productive and one not so much. So Paul says control versus not. It's a really good observation, Paul. I mean, if you look at this scenario, who is in control? The child on the left with the apple in his head probably doesn't have a lot of control, probably not a good sense of much he could do to get out of the situation. So when you look at what can he do, I think he definitely could say a prayer. I think he could maybe do a head fake or something, but there's really not a lot of control over there. The control pretty much resides with the archer, who has to make the shot. There's another comment. Control might be better to stay still and maybe not look at his dad, not distract him. Yeah, there is a little bit of control and some actions that can be taken, but the majority of the control is with the archer. And when you think about it, there's a lot at stake. If he doesn't make his best shot, could kill his son, right? So the consequences, the stakes are really high. The pressure is probably present more because of what's at stake versus his child, his son. And so that locus of control becomes central to what we experience in terms of pressure or stress. The more we can control, the less stress we tend to feel. And they've done studies on this. Stress is debilitating to the body and the mind. When it's excessive, it actually prevents us from performing at our best. The frontal lobes of the brain lose their blood supply and it goes to the brainstem, the amygdala, and we pretty much get into fight or flight mode. Not a lot of conscious thought, not a lot of logic, not a lot of thinking that kicks into our brains when we experience that. And so stress can be very debilitating, especially in large amounts. Pressure can actually help our performance, can actually help us to perform at our best. And that's really where I think we can find some value today in orienting this discussion in our interactions, is how do we shift more away from the stress in our lives or put ourselves in a position where we can experience less of that? And how do we build up pressure to perform in ourselves where we can be at our very best. So with that start on the William Tell story, let's go into just a couple of things that, you know, we could talk about. First of all, there are a lot of people that are have far more expertise than I do on how to manage stress. There are people that are experts in yoga, meditation techniques. You know, there's a lot of things that can alleviate stress on the short term. So I'm not claiming to be an expert on those things, although I do yoga and I found it as very therapeutic and very helpful. My problem is getting enough of a habit together where I can start to see the benefits on a continuous level. I still haven't made it the habit that I need to. So we're not talking about short-term stress release or stress alleviation. We're talking about reducing stress over the course of our lifetime. So I'm looking at it with a more strategic lens today. And it all really comes down to control. As Paul mentioned, you know, the control in the William Tell story was with the archer. He had to make the shot. He had the pressure to perform that. So he was feeling more pressure, definitely some stress about the possibility of losing his son. But the control was with him. So in our lives, there are certain things we control, there are certain things we can influence, and then there are areas of concern that all of us face, particularly in a crisis like COVID-19, where there's a lot of things that are concerning us, much of which we can't directly control. So if we think about our daily life and our daily interactions, what we actually have control over, what we can influence versus what we are concerned about, I think that's a very helpful model to look at how we can manage the stress in our lives long term. Because what it comes down to is it comes down to how do we increase our control over habits, behaviors, actions that can make a positive difference for us. That is really the strategy, if you want to look at the life strategy for reducing our stress long term. It's expanding our circle of control. How do we do that? So let me just pause there and just really ask, you know, a fundamental question. How many of you have seen this before? How many of you are thinking about this on a conscious level? Because until the pandemic came along, I wasn't thinking as much about this on a conscious level. And what are your thoughts about, you know, areas we control versus areas we influence and areas of concern? I want to just take a quick checkpoint here. What I have experienced is with the onset of COVID-19, there's a lot of areas of control that disappeared, like my wife and I being able to go out to eat, you know, right, with our shelter-in-place orders and all those things. I can't go out to a restaurant and have a nice dining experience. At best, I can go to a restaurant, take it home, and then we're back at home eating. So I've lost some control over ability to socialize, to have dinner, to invite friends over, you know, all of those things. I've lost some control there. And sometimes that's a little disquieting. Which of these is most important? I want to have you weigh in on your chat window, or whoever wants to join the open mic on the phone. Where is the best payback going to be for us in reducing our stress over the long term? And there is no wrong answer here, by the way, so you can be completely uninhibited on your response. Just want to get the way you view it. So Russ says control, like I want to focus on that. Things I can control, things I can directly impact. Okay. Anybody else seeing it differently or have different view of it? A lot of people think control is where we need to start, but what I've actually found, and what a lot of leaders that I work with have found, is that if you start with influence, what we can influence, the control follows. And that's kind of a little bit counterintuitive. So Paul actually said, yeah, focus on control, but influence may be more rewarding given the interaction. And that's a fascinating comment, Paul, because its influence gives us the opportunity to take control of things or to take action on things that we probably would not have been able to do otherwise if it were not to expand, if that circle. So what I found as a strategy that has worked with a lot of people is if we can expand our circles of influence, then the things we can control and the things we're able to control and our capacity will increase commensurate with the expansion of that circle. So for example, some of us here may have lost our jobs. Some of us may be dealing with reduced work hours, reduced income. I know my business has experienced that. I do a lot of keynotes and workshops, and obviously those aren't happening a lot right now with the pandemic. And so when you look at things like this that are happening, what can I do? Well, I can connect with my clients. I can connect and influence the positivity that I'm able to help them find in their day, and the focus on goals that matter and the relationships that matter. So influence is one of those things that if we adopt this as a strategy, how can we increase our influence every day? Control will follow, and over the long term, our stress level will go down as that control circle gets bigger. So let's talk about some of the ways that we could do this and some of the things that might be holding us back. I don't know how many of you have read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, but it's a really powerful book. And what oftentimes will hold us back is our own mindset, our own view of the world, of ourselves, of others. And so in that book, Carol talks about two distinct types of mindsets. And one of them is a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Who else? Yeah, I heard a yeah.
Is it baked?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So fixed mindset is one kind of view of things where our basic qualities, intelligence, talent are more fixed. They can't be developed very much. So that's one mindset. The other mindset, as Carol's done her studies, and there's a lot of these evidence that she presents, is that growth can happen on a macro level for all of us, and that our intelligence, our abilities, they're actually not fixed, but they can be developed through hard work, through study, through learning. So one of the things that I found about myself is, I'll just share a personal example. When I was in the Great Recession last 2008, when I was laid off from my job at EMC Corporation, my mindset was, now what? The market sucks. There are no jobs. And I got really despondent and really depressed. And my mindset really limited me from reaching out more effectively on my interviewing and my networking and all the things that matter at a time like that, at a crisis like that, which many of us are going through now. And so for about 2 months, I was just kind of trapped in that fixed mindset that there are no jobs, there are no opportunities, this is not happening. And what got me out of it was service. I started connecting with a local church that had a job seekers network on Saturday. And I began to realize that people were sharing opportunities, people were sharing trends in the economy that I was not aware of. And I suddenly started to see opportunities that I had missed before or was blind to. So my own mindset started to open up about, even in a down market, even in a crisis, there are opportunities. There are chances to make a difference, to add value. And that started me on a more positive trajectory. And I went from a fixed to a growth mindset. And what happened is I started to believe that networking can actually uncover hidden opportunities, hidden job opportunities that aren't posted on job boards, and that there really are needs, even in a down economy, that I could potentially fulfill or be matched to. And so this was a breakthrough moment for me, was to realize that, our fixed mindsets about things, about ourselves or about others, could actually limit us in expanding that circle of influence and eventually our circle of control. And we get caught or trapped in that domain without the ability to escape or to enlarge. And so this is, if you haven't read that book, it's one of the more life-changing books that I've experienced. And it really does have a lot to do with how fast we can widen our circle of influence and circle of control. So a fixed mindset, obviously, I still have some of those. Like there's certain, some of us have worked as professionals for a very long time. And it's like, there are certain tried and true methods and certain things that, yeah, this is the way it's going to work. And other ways maybe are not going to be as fruitful because we've tried, we've experimented. So I'm not saying that a growth mindset is an unlimited, pervasive kind of thing. But I think when we look at ourselves and our potential, don't let anyone else or don't let external conditions limit you in what you're able to learn and what you're able to grow. So really it's more how we apply and how we view ourselves, that we are learning and growing capable human beings. The other thing that made a huge difference was this book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. And this is where it gets really fascinating if we're trying to reduce our stress level over a lifetime. We're trying to take control of our lives and live more fulfilling lives. Gay talks about 4 zones that all of us have probably experienced in our working life. Talks about the zone of incompetence, talks about the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, the zone of, I'm gonna go ahead and put some of us on mute just to get some background noise here. There we go. So there's a zone of incompetence, competence, excellence, and genius. So what does that look like? A zone of incompetence is something like me trying to read compliance legislation and make people understand that or comply. Like there are people that do that very well. HR professionals I know that are extremely gifted at compliance and precision on how to do that and how to make sure that happens at an organizational level. I'm a more big picture thinker, not as much of a detailed thinker. So for me, that's a zone of incompetence. I could learn to do it and I could get into a zone of competence, but I probably wouldn't get much further than that because I have other interests, other things that I'm more passionate about, that I'm naturally more gifted at, and that excite me more. And so you look at what you do for your work in your professional life. The zone of incompetence is a place where if you're doing those things, the best strategy is there someone else that can do them better, that I can delegate those tasks to or that work to? And maybe should it even be done at all? Am I trapped in activities that are less effective, that are not giving me the ROI or the payback? And so maybe some of these are just habits that we perpetuated and we're spending a lot of time there where we would more strategically get benefit from things that we're competent at, things that we're excellent at, things that we are a genius or we're truly gifted at. So the zone of confidence is where most of us operate in our jobs and in our careers. So this is a place where we get the job done, we deliver results. Maybe we're not always passionate about it, but we're good at it. We make things happen. And that is a place where we all have to live in to some extent in our careers. But if our jobs and our professional life are dominated by that, there's unused potential that doesn't get realized. And then we get to a place where many of us have been in this place also, where the zone of excellence, where we do some things and we do it well. One of the things that, I'm going to ask a question before we go into the zone of excellence and genius. How many of you have discovered a zone of excellence for yourself? Something that you know you do well and that you're particularly proud of because you get a lot of joy out of it. Would love to hear just a couple of comments about things that people have told you, your bosses, your coworkers, your significant other, things that really make you happy in that zone of excellence. Because this is part of the making this transition, right? Widening our influence. Because if we do something well, others notice, we can influence behaviors and experiences of other people at a higher level there. Dee Dee, have you share one of yours if you don't mind? Because I noticed a couple things that you do very well in our interactions that we've had.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Oh, There you go. I'm sorry, your phone was kind of going in and out. What was the question here, Bob?
The question was, what is one of the zone of excellence? What are one of the things that you do really well that you know you do well that others have given you feedback on?
Oh, I'd say organization. That's probably my top thing that I do well.
Okay.
Sometimes it could be good, sometimes it could be bad.
But the ability to organize people and things and to get to the outcomes that matter. Is that what you're saying? That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Paul, you talked about negotiation. What can you give us some color behind that, like the situations or the type of negotiations where you were at your best? And you might have to unmute yourself, Paul, because I think you might still be on mute. I'd love to hear some color behind that one. Oh, here it is. Large, complex transactions. Okay. So in situation where there's considerable complexity and a lot of details to manage, negotiating a solution or a win-win outcome, you're at your best in large cases where all these moving parts, all these things to manage. That's great. Any others that people have discovered about themselves? Because this becomes really critical in how we influence. Maybe a more basic question is, how do we know when we're there? That's also something we can talk about here. Okay, another comment from Russ. Situational leadership is definitely related to this. I like the connection you made, Russ, about things that we are unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, conscious competence, and unconsciously competent. Yeah, there's a learning curve and a cycle that we go through in our career around all of our skills. But really, when you get to this level and you get to this topic about the big leap, it's at a personal level. It's a personal level of discovery of those things that we are born to do. So at the lowest level, we're doing things that we're not really good at, don't enjoy, and because we have to, we haven't figured out a way not to do them or to delegate them. And again, we can't eliminate all of that from our lives, but a lot of us have a large percentage of things that are occupying our time that are there. Then we have areas that we know we're skilled, we're competent, we add value, we do well. Much of this plays out professionally in our jobs, but there's still a part of us, the persona, who we are, the magic, our secret sauce, that doesn't show up or tends not to show up in that case. When you get to the zone of excellence, there's some excitement, there's some passion, there's considerable value that others see, and oftentimes it's those people that notice and not ourselves. So for example, one of the things that I really found was helpful was my boss when I was working at PeopleSoft years ago. He came to me and he said, "Rob, you did really well in that meeting, and I particularly liked it when you were at the whiteboard leading the discussion and had people building the model. We were talking about rolling out a new performance management program, and the HR business partners were in the room, and they enriched the model, built the model. So it was really just, I guess I was a fire starter or stoke people's thinking, and it helped create an amazing outcome." And my boss pointed out the fact that that's one of the places that I was at my best. I never really thought about that. I thought, yeah, group facilitation and doing things like that are natural and fun for me. And so his feedback really helped me discover a lot of the zone of excellence, the situations where I could add more value and have more impact and influence others, teams and organizations to better outcomes. So again, this is really important for us in our career to start getting that feedback, to start taking that into account and factoring that into our daily actions. The highest zone, and this is one of the big leaps that Gay Hendricks talks about, is getting to a place where we are in our zone of genius. And the zone of genius is that thing that we were born to do. When we do it and we're involved in that activity, it actually is not even like it's working. Like if it's a professional, whether it's owning our own business or doing freelance work or whatever it is, it's the zone of genius. The great pianist Ling Ling, when you see him at the piano, it's just natural, passionate, flowing. To perform at that level takes probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours a day of practice. I don't know how much practice he does, but it's got to be a lot. And you do it because it's not like working. It's not like a chore. It is a joy, and it is something that is a cut above in terms of the excellence and the impact it has on everybody else. So if we can get into our zones of genius, if you can find that journey and find the ways to make that happen, then our influence gets magnified. And our personal control over doing things that we love to do and reducing our stress becomes higher. I want to ask a question of this group, and you can either do this by chat or by open mic. Has anybody hit a spot or hit a time in your career where you felt like you were there, where you got into your zone of genius, and what was that like for you?
Okay, Rob, this is Dee Dee.
Hey, Dee.
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah, when you get into that zone, it just makes you feel more needed, appreciated, and accomplished.
Love it. When did you first hit that stride? So for you, when was the first time you experienced that? How long ago?
Oh gosh, that was 2012. No, 2008 actually.
Cool.
2008. Yeah. Yep.
So at the time of the last Great Recession, you found that. That's really cool. Did you discover it accidentally, or did someone point you there?
It was a job opportunity that I was offered, where I was kind of sought out for the position, and the commanding officer kind of felt like I would have been a really good fit. I still had to apply and interview just like everybody else, but it turned out that it was the best thing that I ever did. I really enjoyed what I did. I used to tell them all the time, I kind of feel guilty for getting a paycheck, but don't tell anybody. So,
They're paying you to do this? Yeah, that is when you know you were there in the zone of genius. It's like, it's not even working. It's like a hobby. It's fun. Yeah.
And the really good feeling was, so it was working with the Marine Corps, and we were actually running the program for about a year before any policies and procedures or standard operating procedures came out. And when they came out, we were doing what we were supposed to do. So I was like, oh, this feels really good. So I guess we're doing it right. So yeah, that was the highlight of my career so far.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of that journey for you. And what that experience was like. Because stress seems to minimize or become very low level when you are operating in that space. That's great. Anyone else have an experience like that you want to share? Because there is a lot of therapeutic benefit that comes into our lives when we're there. First of all, how many of you have ever found that, even if it's briefly, even if it's fleeting, have ever hit that space that Dee Dee described? And if you haven't, how many of you want to? Like, yeah, I want to get there. That's where I want to be in my life. I want to have a more fulfilling personal impact. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go on stage and go on tour and, educate the masses or, stoke people up. It might be your data analysis and having a research breakthrough or something. It looks different for different people. So here's another comment. Yeah, a comment says, I hope to find that in retirement with volunteering. Well, the good news is you don't have to wait till you retire to get there. I know a lot of professionals and a lot of leaders who have found that, who have hit their stride in their professional life and find that joy. So the invitation would be, don't wait for this to happen in retirement. Be focused on discovering what that is now. About half the work that I do is with leaders of large corporations, so LG Electronics and eBay and Salesforce and companies like that. And I'm amazed at how many successful leaders, they have the job title, they have the salary, they're unfulfilled. They're not working what they feel like at their very best. And so they lose the passion, they lose the excitement, they're successful, but something's missing. And that is why this is so important. And we need people around us to give us feedback as to when they see us hit our stride, hit our zone, and we will know it because we'll find that, again, the hours fly by, it's like not even working. So when you have those moments, pay attention to that, because that is becoming, I think, the mission that so many of us now are contemplating. We're in a crisis. We're not going to be able to probably do that to the extent we'd like to, because we have to pay the bills, we have to manage finances, we have to keep ourselves and our families happy. So I'm not downplaying the significance of what's going on the outside, but we have a rare gift of time. A lot of people have seen meetings and packed schedules open up a little bit. And that time, where are we investing it? Are we investing it in a zone of discovery and finding out what really gives us joy? Or are we stressing and doing things that maybe are not leading us there, but leading us away from there? That becomes the real mission for us. So one of the things that you will find in The Big Leap, which is it was an eye-opening book for me, is Gay Hendricks describes an upper limit problem. We have self-sabotage behaviors and worries and conditioning and coding that we've unconsciously interwoven into our lives that stand in the way of us being able to achieve that. So for me, it was just eye-opening to understand what my upper limit problems were. And when you combine that with the mindset, the growth mindset, it'll really unleash a lot of expansion in your circles of influence and in your circles of control by going on this mission and going on that journey. So again, thank you for those who've shared what that looked like for you. And I really appreciate the comments about why it's difficult. Paul actually says, I worked in Fortune 500 companies and the standards for genius were so high, it was difficult to even aspire. Yes. I found the same. Most of my career was in corporations like EMC and PeopleSoft and Visa. And it wasn't until I was out of work in the last Great Recession that I accidentally found my passion for consulting and for teaching and coaching. Because I did so little of that in corporate life, I suddenly had a chance when I was in my job discovery process to do that in my outplacement firm. One of the consultants that I was getting my outplacement services, for, with all my resume and my interview preps and all that stuff, he noticed that I had a gift for that stuff. And he said, Rob, you're really good at this and we could use an extra hand. Why don't you join us part-time and help us out, because we're getting deluged with, the number of people that are looking for work. Our staff can't handle that. And so it was an invitation extended by observation that someone saw some skills and some potential in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. And it changed my life. Started to do that work, started to realize how much I enjoyed it. And the next job I got after that in 2009 was with Visa as an internal talent management consultant. And I got to build the internal career programs for that company. It's one of the greatest gifts I'd ever been given, was to do work that I hadn't really been able to do in my previous Fortune 500 company experiences. And now I was able to do it at a high impact level for that company. And so, yes, it's sometimes corporate life can eclipse that or make it very difficult to do that, which is why we need the learning, the process of discovery, the networking, the conversations with the people around us who see us at our best, so that we can start to experiment and work that. It's a really good comment, Paul. I appreciate that. So these are strategies that if you were to entertain the notion, change your fixed belief that maybe I am more capable than I think I am, just maybe, what if I have potential that I haven't yet discovered? Just those two facts alone could really make the difference and allow you to turn the corner, even in a crisis, to find a more fulfilling career, even before you retire. You can start that journey now. You can start that discovery process now. And that's the greatest joy I get professionally, is helping people get unstuck, unblocked, push through their limits. Simon Sinek talks a lot about finding your why. We have to find our why. There's a lot of things we do. Why do we do what we do? For me, it's because there's so much more human potential that has not been realized. And so I've devoted my life to helping people discover that potential and the impact they can have, whether it's as a tech professional, whether it's as, a thrill seeker, in finance or medicine or whatever the discipline is. There's a lot of undiscovered potential that all of us have. And that's what I've experienced personally. And that's the gift I want to give back to the world, is helping that to happen. Les Brown, one of my favorite speakers, very inspirational speaker. If you go Google him, he's got a lot of really positive messages. And these are good things to flood our brains with during this uncertain time and this crisis. I love this quote. He said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." So that's really the opportunity we have. Do we believe that or not? I know a business owner, a very impressive lady, Joyce Fustel, Boomers Consulting, MediaTutors.com. She reinvented herself at age 60. She has a very thriving business. She's amazing. She helps people beef up their LinkedIn presence and profile. She's an amazing lady. And so inspiring, because it's really proof positive that we are never too old. Age does not limit us. It's our mindset that limits us. And so part of it is breaking through our old assumptions and our own habits to say, maybe we can experiment. Maybe we can find something, another goal or something to really drive us to a higher level of impact and influence, thus reducing our stress as we go forward in life. So our stress reduction strategy really should be this. It should be, there are things we can control now, there are things we can influence now, and there are things we're all concerned about. And we invest varying percentages of our time in these areas. So I submit to you that if we embark on a journey of learning, discovery, and start figuring out how our network can make us more aware of our gifts and the value that they bring to other people, and what are the situations and the scenarios where that happens, our circle of influence grows. And if we concentrate on our networking and our circle of influence and what other people notice, then what follows is the span of control, or our sphere of control, gets bigger, our stress level goes down, and our joy goes up. And so we're more concerned with what we control or influence versus the things that are happening in the White House, or what the medics are doing, where the vaccine is. There's a lot of things we worry about there, and those are important things. But where am I going to come out of this crisis? Am I going to come out stronger, more capable? Am I going to come out more in tune and closer to the genius, the zone of genius, which is where the most fulfilling lives and careers are found? That's our opportunity. And sometimes it's a crisis that breeds it. I would never have become a consultant. I probably would not be owning my own business today were it not for the Great Recession. It was the Great Recession that caused me, out of sheer desperation, to reinvent myself and to really get in touch with where I found the most joy and what were the skills that I hadn't really used a lot because of my job description or the company cultures and philosophies, the organizations that I'd worked with in the past. It reset the deck and opened up some new opportunities. And I hope we all believe that that can happen. And so more control equals less stress. If we can expand our influence and our control over time, our lives will have lower levels of stress, as we learn from the William Tell story. And so if there's nothing else you take away today, it's where am I investing to widen my sphere of influence, to connect with people, to discover maybe some of the hidden talents or genius that I have that haven't been used that much. And what's the effect going to be over time in terms of where I go and what happens, in my life from this point on? So, one of the things that held me back, this is one of my upper limit problems, Gay Hendricks talks a lot about upper limit problems that people have, is I was always very reticent to act. I wanted to make sure that my website was just right. I wanted to make sure that my curriculum, my workshops, my training, and that my consulting and my coaching was top notch. So I would stay in this zone of planning, perfecting, just stay kind of trapped in that space for months. And I wasn't doing anything to expand that circle. So he is one of my business coaches and mentors. I esteem him very dearly. He started many multi-million-dollar businesses. And something he said to me just has always stuck with me. He says, a lot of people think you have to be clear to get started. But he said, you actually have to get started to be clear And I found that to be literally true. As we go on our journeys and as we journey toward our zone of excellence, there's some things we have to be doing, imperfect as our methods are, imperfect as the information is. We have to be doing that to actually start to get clarity and start to find out what that is. And so that's been one of the greatest gifts I've been given by, my business mentor coaches. You got to get started to get clear, and we can't let fear limit us. Most of the stress in my life, as I went back and looked back on it, was created by inaction. And you can write that down. Inaction breeds stress. If we're just in the thinking space or the worry space or the circle the wagons and protect ourselves space, then we are not going to be able to expand that zone of influence and control, and we're actually going to stay trapped and stay limited. So I hope that personal epiphany is of benefit to you today as we think about reducing the stress, tipping the balance into things we can control. There's a couple ways you can take action beyond today, and I thank the Chamber, number one, for providing the resources, the rich level of resources, webinars, tools, and community connections to resources that help us through the crisis. So one of the things I've really enjoyed are the Chamber resources that have helped me as a small business owner to understand the CARES Act and all the things that go with it. It was pretty complex when you look at all the stuff that you could be doing. They help make sense of that. I hope you'll commit to a daily learning regimen and working virtually, networking more effectively virtually, so you get in touch with what other people are seeing, how they're experiencing you, and the transferable skills that will benefit you beyond today. There's hard skills, like learning Adobe Photoshop Pro, or hard skills like agile methodologies. And then there's transferable skills like leadership, communication, organizing, critical thinking, that will benefit us no matter what our job is. And if you find some things that really are natural to you and strengths to yourself, that will help move you toward your zone of genius. So there's something that I offer to everybody that have been on my webinars, and those of you who've been on previous webinars know that this is something that I remain consistent on, is during the time when I actually have a little bit more space, now that I'm not doing as many workshops and keynotes, I'm actually opening up some time on a pro bono level, on a free level, to offer to any of you that are on this webinar 1 hour of free coaching. If you haven't hit your zone of genius, if you want to know what's slowing you down, why you're getting stuck, why you're frustrated, whatever, I am happy to share that time to help create that breakthrough for you. So I offer that free to Chamber members, and I'll leave you my contact information for those of you who want to take me up on that offer. I get a lot of joy out of that. The caveat is I'm doing this in April, because I don't know what May is going to be like when things start opening up and I start going on the road again and traveling and doing all this. The whole game could be changed, but I will do this for those who are interested in April. The only thing I ask is that you bring your best thinking, your transparency, full disclosure transparency about what's working, what's not working, and I'll bring my best thinking to help you create a breakthrough in your life. So I offer that to the Chamber membership freely, and hope that we do get to connect one-on-one and talk more about that. I'll leave one final thought today, and then we can open it up for any questions that you might have. Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing. The freedoms, the last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And he should know, because he was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, and he never let them take away his right to choose, his attitude and his mindset. So I hope we can be inspired by his life example, and that we could attack this crisis with a different mindset, with a growth mindset, and with the ability to work toward our zone of excellence, whatever that might be. Actually, zone of genius, not zone of excellence. Get beyond our zone of excellence to get into our genius space. So with that, thank you for the time. Here's my contact information for those who would like to meet one-on-one in April. You can either text me or just email me, and we can take whatever questions, whatever's on your mind right now. We have a few more minutes before we wrap up. Would love to just connect on where your hearts and heads are at.
Bob, this is Dee Dee. While everybody is gathering their questions and thoughts, I just wanted to thank you again. You mentioned Les Brown in your presentations, and I think you're spot on. He is an amazing speaker with an infectious laugh.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And if anybody ever wants to just kind of listen to some positivity every day, he has many, many, many YouTube videos out there that my husband and I actually listen to very frequently. So really good resource there. Zig Ziglar, he was another one. I believe Zig Ziglar actually mentored Les Brown.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good positive resources there. Just talking about, the things in life that we know, but it kind of gives you that extra reassurance to say, yeah, and you get that aha moment, it's like, oh, and he puts a little, a bit of humor into his presentation, which I enjoy too. So I thank you so much, Rob, for, speaking to our members again, and really, really appreciate you offering everybody that hour consultation for free. I think at this point, many of us are taking a look back at, reanalyzing things, which, some of us do quite frequently and some of us do less frequently, but this is definitely something that is forcing us to do that at this time.
That's given me a lot of joy too. I mean, just being able to connect locally. Most of the time when I do business, I'm on planes going to the coast, right? New York and San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of different places. So what's really been nice for me, that the rose I've been given, is being able to give back to my local community and being able to connect with local professionals and business owners. That's been a real joy. So.
Exactly. Rosalind Reese had just posted a comment. She has to go, but she says, thank you. She learned a lot. Her motto is, too blessed to be stressed. Amen, Rosalind.
Too blessed to be stressed. That's worth tweeting, man. That's great. I love that.
There you go.
Well, it's so great, Dee Dee, to again be on board with this initiative with the Chamber, and I look forward to the next one. Next week we're going to be talking about projecting your best self to the world. So it's kind of a working session with LinkedIn profiles, resumes, whatever you want to bring. And we've got a panel of experts that will be joining us, which, Dee Dee, I'll send you the confirmations of who's going to be joining me on that.
That's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be a really rich experience, and would encourage you to bring anyone who's struggling in this.
Wonderful. What are their expertise in? Can you share?
What's that?
The panel of experts that you're bringing in, what are their expertise in?
So one of them is a CEO for a commercial real estate company here, who's a member of the Chamber. One's an HR business partner who's been directing and leading high-performance teams for many years. One is a dear contact at the University of Denver who's very involved with alumni relations and business connections, right? Has been for more than a decade. So this is a pretty high-powered panel that will really, I think, enrich and have a lot to add as people journey and spike their journey toward that zone of excellence and the zone of genius that we're seeking to be.
That's wonderful. Hey, Rob, when you get a chance, can you call me offline? I'd like to, I just had an idea. Another one.
I love ideas. So maybe organize one. So yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Awesome.
I've got another call I got to jump on now, but I will connect with you this afternoon.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the journey, even though it's tough. Enjoy the journey. That's most important, and stay healthy. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Be safe.
Bye-bye.